Today we are going to see the different branches of the trigeminal nerve. So the trigeminal nerve is basically the fifth cranial nerve. Okay. Further, it is having three divisions. The three divisions could be ophthalmic, maxillary, and the mandibular division. See, the red here is the ophthalmic division. This is said to be V1. Then the yellow one is the maxillary division, said to be V2. And this is the mandibular divisions, V3. See, the trigeminal nerve is coming from this trigeminal ganglion. Another thing you need to see is all the three branches of the trigeminal nerve, they are going to supply some or the other structure. For example, first we would be looking to the V1. Okay. Now the V1 here is the ophthalmic branch. This is your ophthalmic branch or the ophthalmic division. It has got three parts further, like it is going to supply three places: the lacrimal region, frontal region, and the nasociliary region. Now what are the nerves that are going to supply? The lacrimal nerve, that's going to supply the lacrimal glands mainly. Then coming to the frontal part. The frontal part is going to have supratrochlear and another one is going to be supraorbital. Now look here in the picture. If I say this is the V1, then V1 is going to have components that will supply the lacrimal region. Then the frontal is here supratrochlear, then supraorbital somewhere here. So this is how it is supplying. Okay. Lastly, the last part is the nasociliary. The nasociliary is going to have its supply to all which regions? It is going to supply the long ciliary. Then it is the anterior ethmoidal, the posterior ethmoidal. Lastly, here it was supratrochlear. Here it will be infratrochlear. Now you must be thinking how to remember all this. It's very easy. Just imagine this on your own face. Ophthalmic, you know which area is the ophthalmic. So this area is your ophthalmic region. In your own face you can imagine this area. And now see, lacrimal will go to lacrimal glands. Frontal, you have the frontal region. It has two nerves, the supratrochlear, supraorbital. Then the nasociliary, it has long ciliary nerve, anterior ethmoidal, posterior ethmoidal, and your infratrochlear. That is what you need to know. Okay. Next, coming to the maxillary. Now maxillary has got a course to be followed. If you see here, 1 minute, the maxillary nerve, it exits like this. Like what is the course? It comes like this through the foramen rotundum. So the first foramen here is the foramen rotundum. So through the foramen rotundum, it will move to the next feature, that is the pterygopalatine fossa. Pterygopalatine fossa. So how is it going on? It's first going out from the foramen rotundum in the skull, in the cranial cavity, then going to the next structure, that is the pterygopalatine fossa. From the pterygopalatine fossa, it moves into the inferior orbital fissure. Okay, not the foramen, the fissure. And from the fissure, moving ahead, it enters to a bony canal or a solid canal that is said to be the infraorbital canal. Infraorbital canal. And then lastly, it exits up through the infraorbital foramen. So this is the infraorbital foramen. So you see, the course is really simple. It's going out from foramen rotundum, then going into the pterygopalatine fossa, then moves into the infraorbital fissure, this bony canal, then it enters into this canal as the infraorbital canal and comes out through the infraorbital foramen. When it comes out through the infraorbital foramen, this is said to be the infraorbital nerve. So one branch here is going to be the infraorbital nerve. The other branch that we have here is the zygomatic nerve. Okay, the other one is zygomatic nerve. The one branch was going out like this, other it went up, and this was your zygomatic branch. The third one come down here and this is the ASA, PSA, MSA, PSA and MSA. Now what is this? This is the anterior superior alveolar nerve, the middle superior alveolar nerve, and lastly this is the posterior superior alveolar nerve. These are the three branches, okay, and this is what goes down into the alveolar socket region, supplying the teeth. So here the anterior superior alveolar, this is going to supply your canine as well as your incisors. The MSA is going to supply the premolars, and this PSA is going to supply the molars. So you see, it's very easy. The zygomatic, it will give supply to two things: zygomaticofacial and the zygomaticotemporal. So this zygomatic branch is going to supply two regions, the facial as well as the temporal. So it is the zygomaticofacial and the zygomaticotemporal. Then the inferior alveolar nerve, when it came out, imagine it comes out somewhere here. So this is going to supply three regions. It will supply the superior labialis, that is the upper lip region here. Then it will supply your the nasal branch to the nose, and lastly it is the superior labialis, the nasal branch, and lastly it is going to be your palpebral branch. So these are the three things which are being supplied. This completes with the maxillary division. So you see, we'll revise all of this in last, moving fastly to the mandibular branch. See, the mandibular branch, this is the biggest branch of the trigeminal nerve. With being the biggest, it is also a mixed branch that is having both sensory as well as the motor sensations. Okay, now moving ahead to what we find here. See, now again it is following a course. If you see about the mandibular nerve, no, it comes out from the foramen ovale. So this is your foramen ovale. Your mandibular nerve comes out of this, and then it divides into two divisions. This going to be the anterior division, this becomes the posterior division, and this region here where it is not divided, this becomes to be the trunk. Now to see here in the trunk, anterior and the posterior division. The first we are going to talk about the posterior division. This is very easy. You can remember this as AIL. What is this AIL? This is the auriculotemporal nerve. Then you have the inferior alveolar nerve. Then this is your lingual nerve. Coming to the anterior division. The anterior division has got a mnemonics, that is DMBMN. You can also remember this as DBMN. It's easy to say, DBMN. Okay, now this DBMN, the D here is for deep temporal. The M is going to be for masseteric. B is the buccal nerve. And N is basically nerve to lateral pterygoid. Now the best part here is learning this nerve to pterygoid is going to help you a lot. Firstly, it will help you to remember the division of anterior, like the anterior division. It will help you to learn this particular branch. And if you know that this is going to nerve to lateral pterygoid, the trunk is going to supply to one of its division, that is the nerve to medial pterygoid. So just remember the anterior division, that there is something like nerve to lateral pterygoid in the anterior division. Just opposite to it, just the other medial pterygoid is being supplied by this trunk division. So this becomes easy now. And lastly here it is the nervus spinosum, which comes out of the spinosum foramen. Okay. So this is basically the whole course. Quickly revising this in 2 minutes. The ophthalmic branch has got three divisions: lacrimal, frontal, nasociliary. Lacrimal supplying the lacrimal glands here. 1 minute. Lacrimal is going to supply the lacrimal glands. Frontal will have supratrochlear, supraorbital. The nasociliary is having long ciliary, anterior ethmoidal, posterior ethmoidal, and the infratrochlear. Now to remember this, you can remember like this. This is the supratrochlear here, the opposite lower one goes the infratrochlear here. Moving ahead, coming to the maxillary nerve. The maxillary nerve basically gives three divisions: zygomatics in the infraorbital and the NSA-PSA, the superior alveolars. So the zygomatic here is going to supply zygomaticofacial and zygomaticotemporal. Infraorbital will supply your superior labialis, nasal branches, and the palpebral branches. This is lips, nose, eyes. And then anterior superior alveolar, middle superior alveolar, and PSA, that is the superior alveolars, are going to supply different teeth. And basically the pulp of different teeth, it is the canine incisor. And then middle is going to supply the premolars. The posterior will supply the molars. Coming to the last division, that is the mandibular trunk. Again, mandibular nerve is passing like this, and when it passes, it divides into a trunk and then anterior and the posterior division. Coming to the divisions, firstly, the posterior division is AIL, very easy to remember: auriculotemporal nerve, inferior alveolar nerve, and the lingual nerve. See, one more thing to remember here: the auriculotemporal nerve, it supplies majorly two structures, the parotid gland, and the other one is your TMJ. These are the major two structures. The inferior alveolar nerve, it is going to supply the chin region, all the teeth of the mandible, and also it is going to have little effect on the lower lip. And the lingual nerve, it lastly, it supplies the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. So if somebody asks you where it is going to supply, these are the supplies. Coming to the anterior division again, okay. In the anterior division, you can remember this as DBMN, as I've just told you, DBMN. Now D here is deep temporal, masseteric, buccal nerve, and the nerve to lateral pterygoid. If you remember the nerve to lateral pterygoid, quickly go and write the trunk nerve, that is nerve to the medial pterygoid, and the other one is the nervus spinosum. So this was whole about the different branches of the trigeminal nerve. If you have any doubt, let me know in the comment section. Hope this video helped you. Thank you so much.